Jonathan Majors finally talks about losing his role as Kang. We just found out about the future of the John Wick franchise and Keanu Reeves' involvement. Deadpool Wolverine keeps shattering box office records. There's so much news to discuss, but before we get to it, Davis Ryder, you're replacing Gem Mint?
No, I'm not replacing Gem Mint on the channel. This is something I got asked a ton this last week, and it's definitely not the case. This is a series that Tom and I have been talking about doing for months now. We probably should have mentioned in the last video that this is a new series we're doing, and we definitely also need a name for it. So if you want to drop a comment and let us know what we should call this video series, definitely do that. But anyways, we got a lot to talk about, so let's get to the news.
Jonathan Majors was approached by paparazzi this past week, and he was responding to questions about his lost role as Kang. He was set up to be one of the biggest Marvel villains of the next era, and it was taken from him due to his own actions. Listen to this quote, because I have some things to say about it. "I think it's fair that Mr. Downey has been greeted with patience and curiosity and love, and that Mr. Miller's gotten the same treatment." He's talking about Ezra Miller here. "And that they're being allowed to work their art and they're creative at that level. I didn't really get that." What he was responding to was a question about his bad doings and the redemption process that he hasn't begun getting yet, but that Robert Downey Jr. has been granted, courtesy of Iron Man and the MCU post his arrest in the 1990s, and then throwing in Ezra Miller into the mix for some reason. Now, I thought it appropriate to bring this up because what he did is very different than what Robert Downey Jr. did. Don't you agree, Davis?
Yeah, two totally different things, and one is obviously way worse than the other.
There's a lot of actors who have gotten in trouble with the law and have lost roles and lost jobs, frankly. But I think it's important to actually know what these people did. If you're going to assess and compare, Jonathan Majors was sentenced to a year-long domestic violence program after being convicted of assaulting and harassing his ex-girlfriend, all right? That's very different than the following. In 1999, Robert Downey Jr. was initially sentenced to 3 years in California's substance abuse treatment facility and state prison after missing a number of court-related drug tests tied to a 1996 cocaine possession charge. These are entirely different, and one makes it way more understanding how someone can go from being in trouble with the law and then finding their way back into the public's hearts.
Yeah, like overcoming addiction is a totally different thing, and that's something that should be celebrated, obviously. But, you know, what Jonathan Majors did is, first of all, it's very fresh. You know, Robert Downey Jr. had a few years to kind of simmer on that. But obviously what Jonathan Majors did was way worse. And I also want to touch on the fact that he says, you know, something about Ezra Miller not getting the second chance. I don't think Ezra Miller's gotten a second chance at all. He has no roles lined up whatsoever, and I think that he's definitely being panned. He's not getting any more roles that I can imagine, and it seems like most people have lost all respect for him. So I don't even think that that point really counts either.
Let us know in the comment section below if you think that Jonathan Majors should get a second chance portraying Kang in the MCU. I, for one, am glad, like, aside from the actor situation, that they are going to be focusing on a different villain entirely. I don't think the Kang narrative was strong enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm happy that they're stepping away from the story of Kang. I don't think it was a very strong story to begin with, and I'm happy that they had a reason to kind of move on from it as well. So let's go ahead and move on to the next story. Like I said, we're going to be talking things not strictly comic related, and me and Tom are big horror fans, so the first story that we're going to get into here, not comic related, is from Five Nights at Freddy's.
This week, actor Matthew Lillard announced that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is going to begin filming in October and is set to release December 2025.
Yeah, the first movie was a surprise hit to most people. It did almost $300 million at the box office. It also came out with pretty low initial reviews from critics, but it got an 87% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, so it showed that the fans are hungry for this franchise on the big screen.
One of the things I love most about horror movies is when they use practical effects, and that's really what draws me to these films. And we're seeing a glimpse of the creation process this past week with how these contraptions are made. We're seeing the molds, we're seeing the robots, and that's why they look so scary on the screen, because they're as real as can be.
Yeah, we have early images of 3 animatronics that were not in the first movie being built, being Toy Bonnie, Mangle, and Toy Chica. They look pretty gnarly so far. Obviously, it's early images of them, but I'm very excited to see what they look like in the final product.
Outside of that, we also found out that Five Nights at Freddy's is going to be crossing over with Dead by Daylight, the video game franchise, and that's going to happen summer of 2025, just ahead of the movie slated for December. Taking a quick break from this video to tell you about a Kickstarter that I am backing, that I'm not sponsored by, I'm not getting paid to tell you about this. I'm just a fan of John Boy freaking Myers, and I know you are too. And he has a funded Kickstarter to over $45,000. I'm just excited, and I want you to consider backing it. John Boy Myers is releasing a Volume 1 remastered edition of his sketchbook. There's PDF versions of it. There's a physical version of the book. He's got really cool perks like lanyards and bookmarks and stickers. There's a Volume 0 88-page, only black and white version of a bunch of his most popular covers. I'm excited to get my hands on Volume 1 because I only have Volume 2. And if you're an artist, I would encourage you to at least pick up the PDF because there's behind-the-scenes stuff in here, concept art. You get a peek behind the curtain at the creative genius on how he's able to make such fabulous work. Whether you're a fan of his work on Spider-Man or Venom, his stuff over on DC, or his time where he worked with McFarlane on Spawn, there is a little bit of everything in these books. And I know there are tiers if you're interested in original art, commissions, private commissions. There's going to be some stuff there for you to consider. You only got a couple days left. I want to tell the community about it so that you're not forced to buy stuff on eBay for more money. Go back the project, link in the description, and let's get back to the video.
All right, up next, we got some breaking news from the world of John Wick. The headline reads, John Wick 4 sequel series from Keanu Reeves and Chad Stahelski heats up TV marketplace.
The John Wick series is being titled Under the High Table. It's going to take place moments after John Wick 4 and will have no bearing on John Wick 5. That movie's still happening. Keanu Reeves will not star in the sequel series. However, he will be producing. And I think the best news is that they got the original director from the John Wick franchise to do this sequel.
Yep, director Chad Stahelski, who worked on all 4 of the previous John Wick movies, will be directing the pilot for this TV show. Again, it is set right after what happens in John Wick 4. We don't really know where they're going to go with that because they left it pretty ambiguous. Is he alive? Is he dead? We're not totally sure. We do know, though, that it will include characters from the John Wick films. There's no other details besides that, but that is pretty promising.
In January, the director Stahelski signed a deal with Lionsgate Media, and it specifically states that it's across the film franchises, TV, and other media. Could there be a John Wick video game coming?
Oh, that'd be cool. I think people would really like that. People really love this franchise. Obviously, it's known for its action and its gunplay. That would cross over really well to video games. I would play the hell out of that.
Of course, the action draws us in for John Wick, but my favorite part, and they build it every single movie, is expanding the lore. I mean, the whole assassin group is so preposterous, but their duty with every movie is to make it more and more believable. And I think with a series, they're going to really be able to dive into that.
I love the lore as well, don't get me wrong, but personally, the reason I show up to John Wick movies is to watch Keanu Reeves f people up. All right, speaking of action movies, we got to talk about Deadpool Wolverine.
Deadpool Wolverine is demolishing the box office. Hit him with the numbers.
The movie opened to $438 million worldwide. That is by far the largest opening weekend for an R-rated movie.
This movie was fun. It was one of my favorite MCU movies that I've seen in a very long time. There's a lot of reasons why this movie is performing so well at the box office, but one of the main reasons I suspect is because of all the cameos. Maybe the No Way Home effect, if you would.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of awesome cameos that happen in this movie, but I think the one that's getting the most love is Gambit, Channing Tatum's Gambit. I think this is kind of a Deadpool 1 effect where we never knew if the movie was going to get made, and then we finally saw Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool in that one leaked snippet, and that's what happened to get the movie made. So maybe that's what happens here with Channing Tatum as Gambit. Maybe he gets his own movie because of all the love he's getting.
On top of Gambit, we got Blade, Wesley Snipes' version, which is really exciting. He even posted to his Instagram an article about replacing Mahershala Ali, the upcoming Blade film, with Wesley Snipes. That takes some balls to post, but it's Wesley Snipes. And I also was really surprised after hearing about the contentious nature of the relationship between him and Ryan Reynolds post the Blade movie.
Yeah, if you don't know about this, when they made Blade 3 a long time ago, which Ryan Reynolds was also in, Wesley Snipes was notoriously hard to work with, and Ryan Reynolds has not been shy about talking about it in interviews.
True story. After the movie, Davis, you mentioned it, like the CGI mishap that happened during Blade Trinity, where Wesley Snipes refused to open his eyes for a scene despite the director's direction, and they had to CGI his eyes open because he was being so stubborn.
Yeah, this is actually one of the things that like semi-ended his career back in the day, among other things, obviously, which is why it was so surprising when he showed up in the movie and had such a big reaction. Wesley now claims that they never hate each other at all, though, which I don't really know if I buy.
One of my favorite cameos was by X-23, and we're finding out, courtesy of Daphne Keane, that this version of X-23 is the same one from Logan. This is the same X-23 that we were introduced to years ago.
Yeah, now it just begs the question, like, why is that X-23 in the void? And is that something that we're ever going to find out about?
Yeah, there's a whole other narrative here that could be introduced in the MCU following X-23 and how she found her way into the void. And I definitely pay to see that one. We also found out this past week about another actor who was almost going to make a cameo in this movie. And that actor was Nicolas Cage, Ghost Rider.
Yeah, apparently there was conversations between them and Nicolas Cage about him reprising his role as Ghost Rider in the movie. I'm very bummed this didn't happen because I probably would have been way more excited to see that than Elektra.
The Deadpool news doesn't end there because we even got an Instagram post from Henry Cavill this week showing his version of Wolverine and kind of taking a swing at DC.
Yeah, he posted the first high-res image of himself as the Calverine, and he posted it with the caption, "To be safe, I shaved the mustache off for this one." So obviously he's taking a little shot at DC there.
Now, we got to talk about Dairy, but we're not talking about milk, so take it easy, Homelander. We're talking about Dairy, the series, the prequel to It 1 and 2. And how I didn't know that this was happening is a mystery to me. Davis, this is all good news to me, especially because they got Bill Skarsgård, the next Crow, to portray Pennywise again.
Yeah, we can go ahead and skip talking about him as Crow. I don't know how I feel about that. We can also skip talking about It Chapter 2 because I thought that movie was kind of bad, but I digress.
This is going to be a series that's going to debut on HBO, so that's a good sign. And it's going to take place in the 1960s prior to the first It movie, which released in, 2017?
Yeah, we do got Bill Skarsgård back as Pennywise in the movie, so that's a good sign. The series is also going to be directed and produced by the director of the first two It movies, Andy Muschietti.
Muschietti directed both of the It movies, which is good, but he also directed the Flash movie, which is pretty bad. He is attached to direct the live-action Attack on Titan film, as well as to direct the Brave and the Bold movie. And speaking of DC, we do have some updates. Davis, hit him with some rapid-fire news.
So first up, we got Superman Legacy that just wrapped filming. It's set to release July 11th, 2025. We do have this set photo of all of them hanging around with James Gunn. And personally, I will say I am not a DC guy, not a Superman guy, but knowing that James Gunn is attached, I'm definitely going to be giving it a shot.
I have mixed feelings about this next little bit of news because I love this game, Until Dawn, and it's going to be a live action movie that's coming soon. However, the director attached, not too crazy about.
Yeah, we got David F. Sandberg attached to this movie. David F. Sandberg directed Lights Out as his first movie. Not so great. Then he made Annabelle Creation, which for that whole universe, one of the better movies. Then he made both Shazam movies, and Shazam 1, pretty good. And the second one, dumpster fire. So I don't have a lot of faith in this movie, but we'll see what happens.
I really recommend that you play this game regardless of how the movie's going to pan out, which I will still watch because I have a very low bar for horror movies. We also have some House of the Dragon news. They're going to be ending this with season 4. And do people still care about Game of Thrones? I mentioned that to you, Davis, and you were not happy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And actually, this season was very highly rated among most fans. Episode 4 of this season was actually in the top 10 highest rated episodes of the entire Game of Thrones franchise. So it was kind of surprising when I saw they were ending this with season 4, but it's not like Game of Thrones is going anywhere anytime soon because A Night of Seven Kingdoms is filming right now.
Deadpool debuted in the comic book called New Mutants 98, and that cover has been owned by one person for quite a long time, and seemingly trying to ride off the success of Deadpool Wolverine has put it up for sale. Davis, are you interested in buying the original Rob Liefeld art for $7.5 million?
Tom, can I borrow $7.5 million?
You know what? Because it's you, Davis, I'm going to make that happen. I'm curious, this is actually going up for sale at Heritage Auctions. They're not going to be auctioning this piece. It's a set price at $7.5 million. Do you think someone's going to buy this?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either way if it does or doesn't sell. But if this does sell, apparently it would be the single most valuable piece of original comic book art ever sold. So that's pretty nuts.
I'm starting to get flashbacks to the Snyder Cut era. It's been 8 years since the original Suicide Squad movie debuted, and the director is now saying that he wants to redo that movie, that he can do it better.
Yeah, for a long time now, David Ayer has been loud on Twitter about having a way better movie, a way better cut. They ruined his movie. It was all the studio, all that kind of stuff. And I will say, this man made End of Watch and Fury, and he also wrote Training Day. So if there is an Ayer cut out there, although I'm not going to have very high expectations, I'll definitely be watching it.
How do you feel about it? Because I remember watching the first Suicide Squad movie, and I didn't hate it. And I certainly didn't hate Jared Leto Joker.
I hated Jared Leto Joker. I did. I'll admit that right now. But I didn't think that it was as bad a movie as most people. So again, if he makes his own version of it, I'll definitely be tuning in.
What's your favorite news that we hit? What name should we call this series? And as always,
Geek responsibly.
Enough said.